Hello, story lovers, and welcome to another episode of Around the World in 40 Tales. I am Doreen Vanderstoop, and I'm here today with my fellow Storytelling Alberta member, LD Lee. LD, welcome.
Good evening on a bright sunny summer evening
For
without
sure.
rain.
And it's great to have you here again because you have been kind enough to gift us another story, and this is your second, which is just lovely. Thank you so much for doing another story for us.
My privilege.
Well, I want to let everybody know that today LD is sharing a story titled Lost in Transit, and that takes us to Edmonton. And it's the story of Alex Decoteau. Now, before we dive in, we wish to acknowledge that our organization, our wonderful organization of Storytelling Alberta, operates on the traditional territories of the Indigenous signatories to Treaties 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10. And this land includes the Metis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. We make this declaration with respect and in the spirit of reconciliation. Now, just let me tell you a little bit more about LD. She grew up in a family of storytellers, so she comes by her craft honestly. She has been an active member of Storytelling Alberta and Storytellers of Canada, Conteur du Canada, for many years. LD especially enjoys sharing stories from the heart, tales of ordinary folks going about their daily lives in extraordinary ways. Folks young and old have been entertained by her renditions of old stories and legends with updated twists. Her forte is stories of railroaders, especially those in Western Canada. All right, so here is LD with Lost in Transit. Take it away.
This evening, I am telling a story of an amazing man. In 1967, he was named as one of Edmonton's Citizens of the Century. He was a warrior, a soldier, an Olympian. He was one of he was Canada's first Indigenous police officer in Edmonton and motorcycle cop. Alex Decoteau was born on the Red Feather Reserve near North Battleford in 1897. Before I continue, though, his great niece, Isola Mothershead, has asked me to specifically set the record straight. Even though, in historical documents, they name him as the first Aboriginal police officer in Edmonton, Alec, in fact, was Métis. His father was Métis, his mother an Indian princess. She was the daughter of the chief of the Red Feather Reserve. Their name, Watani, means eagle tail feathers. And not many people know that Alec had a tattoo to honor his mother of two crossed eagle feathers on his shoulder. It isn't even mentioned in the documents when he signed up to serve in the First World War. Alex Decoteau was also a survivor of the Indian residential school system. It's unfortunate. His father was a warrior and served under Chief Poundmaker at the Battle of Cut Knife Hill. He had English, French, Assiniboine, and Cree. His services were needed to have intercourse with Chief Poundmaker. Unfortunately, when Alec was only 4 years old, his father was killed by an itinerant American farm worker, Fletcher. The man was brought to justice, but Alec's mother could not afford to raise 5 children and run a small farm. She moved home to the reserve, and the children were put into the Battleford Industrial School for Indians. Alec learned a trade there, blacksmithing. His sister Emily was sent to Calgary to a job there. Now, as an aside, there was a gentleman named David Latta who married one of Alex's aunties. He farmed near Battleford, but after 3 years of prairie fires wiping out his farm, David moved on to Edmonton. He was going to follow the Klondike Trail to gold, and his wife would stay in Edmonton with their child. She was pregnant at the time, and unfortunately, shortly after the childbirth, she died. Emily, blood is thicker than water. She left that good-paying job in Calgary, moved up to Edmonton to look after those orphan children. And in 2 years, she and David married. Another little aside, David was the RCMP officer who investigated the death of Alex's father. He was the one that brought Fletcher to justice, and Fletcher was eventually put in jail, then moved to a mental health institution. Now, Emily missed her brother so much. She wrote letter after letter, trying to convince him to come to Edmonton. There was lots of work in Edmonton, and he could work with his brother-in-law at his machine shop as a blacksmith and build wagons, Red River carts. Well, Alec didn't want to leave his mother, but eventually he agreed to come and try for a while to work in Edmonton. But he wanted more than to be just a blacksmith. He approached the Edmonton Police Service to sign up, but in those days, Indians were not accepted. But he kept trying, and eventually, in 1911, the proud day when the police chief put the silver badge on his dark blue uniform, and he became the first Indigenous police officer in Edmonton. He worked hard. There are tales of him. Speed limits were 15 miles an hour in those days. He actually chased a motorcyclist down because he was speeding and gave him a ticket. In 5 years, he was made a sergeant with his own station out in West Edmonton. And when the high-level bridge was completed, he was asked to lead the procession of dignitaries across the bridge, and he ran at top speed. How safe that bridge was. Now, Alec always ran. Even in the industrial school, they knew what a good runner he was. He was good at other sports too, but running, he was a spirit runner. And when he came to Edmonton, he didn't stop running. In one day, he ran a half-mile, a 1 mile, a 5 mile, and a 10-mile race, and he placed first in each race. The Christmas run in Calgary was a big deal. He won it 3 years in a row. They were so proud of him. And he was a bit of a rake. A good cigar and a couple of pretty girls on his arm just made his day. But there was one girl at the Pan American restaurant, a redhead. Oh, she caught his eye and his heart. Oh, she was a beautiful girl, and her parents liked Alec very much. But alas, unrequited love stayed unrequited, because, after all, he was an Indian. When the war broke out, our government wasn't particularly enamored of Indians and didn't want to accept them as soldiers. But when they finally opened up, and accepted Indians as soldiers to fight for Canada. Alex was one of the first ones to sign up into the Sportsmen's Battalion, the 202. He went down to the Sarcee barracks, and there he and other sportsmen were trained, and because of their prowess as runners, they became the trench runners, the men who dared to spend their lives running messages between battalions. Well, just to go back a little bit, when he first went overseas to England, he didn't stop running. There were races there. And in one race, he came in first. It was a 2,000 meter. And the dignitaries said, "Oh my, he isn't quite British." His trophy was lost in transit, they told King George V, who happened to be there that day. And the king was an honorable man. And he went into his vest pocket and pulled out his personal Welton gold pocket watch and stated that Alex must have a trophy, and gave him his personal watch. Alex treasured that more than any other trophy he won. He carried it with him everywhere, even into battle. Soon after he went to England with the 2nd Battalion, he transferred to the 49th Battalion, and they were already fighting on the continent. And so he transferred to his division, and it was at the bloody, muddy fields of Passchendaele that history took a turn. He was running between the battalions when a sniper spotted him. Alex's life was over just before his 30th birthday, and his watch went missing. But fortunately, although Alex was dead, his spirit wasn't. And like the phoenix, it rose. The watch was found, and along with his other effects, they were sent home to his family. The Edmonton Police Museum has that watch. You can go and see it if you make an appointment. And his spirit, because of the Aboriginal tradition that if a warrior falls and is not given a proper burial, his spirit will wander the earth forever. And so they prevailed upon the authorities, and in 1985 they sung his spirit home, back to the Red Feather Reserve. There were over 300 dignitaries there. There were the Chief Whatney, the elders, military soldiers, dignitaries from Edmonton. And there was laughing and singing and many ceremonies and a beautiful luncheon. And then, when they went outside, there was a black stallion with a brave waiting to lead them down to the powwow grounds. And that stallion, as is tradition when a warrior falls, the ceremony to the grave is led by a black stallion with a saddle holding boots reversed. And so they went down to the powwow grounds, and they had their special chants and their special ceremonial dances. And Alex, his spirit was released to roam the Red Feather Reserve. But the story does not end there. For you see, his spirit has moved us For 10 years, we had Alex Decoteau races here in Edmonton for school children. And the top 3 were given bursaries to continue their studies. There have been many scholarships raised in his honor. One special one is for the Canadian Armed Forces men and women who fight overseas or wherever they are needed, or who are disabled. And these scholarships, $5,000 each, help them to rebuild their lives. I'm sure that's what Alex would want. And again, his spirit rose. Camp Curry in Calgary has a special place to honor fallen soldiers. 4 monuments, north, south, east, west. On each one, there is a plaque showing a particular soldier. Alex Decoteau is one of them. It's called Letters from Home, and beside his picture, there are letters he wrote to his sister Emily from the front lines. It's a very moving place. Here in Edmonton, we have a special street named after him, Alex Decoteau Way in Griesbach. We have a community that has been named after him. But my special place is Alex Decoteau Park. That is on 102nd Avenue and 105th Street. And it is so beautiful. They have a community garden, a raised beds. They have an off-leash area for the inner city people to take their special dogs. There are fountains that come out of the ground and the children can race through them and laugh. There are slings, special slings from a wooden timbers that you can pretend that you are flying. And there is a band shell. And they play special music for young people, which I am not so fond of. But it is to attract the younger people to come and learn about Alex Decoteau and his heroism. And if you sit, there is a beautiful sculpture, red, and it raises 30 feet in the air. And it looks like ribbons at the end of a race and a man running through them. The sculpture's by a famous artist down in Ontario. And if you sit there in a quiet evening, you might feel a special breeze on your cheek. And I like to think of that as Alex Decoteau's spirit on one last run. I hope he rests in peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, LD, for sharing that really important slice of history that everyone should know about. Thank you so much. If people are wanting to reach out to you, LD, then they can reach us at Storytelling Alberta by emailing us at info@storytellingalberta.com. And stay tuned, because we are going to have more stories from around the world coming in the weeks to come. Check out our website and you'll find more. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, LD.
Good evening.